The Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR, has released information from covert operations, alleging significant Western involvement in Ukraine's proxy conflict and strategic maneuvers to keep Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in power despite growing domestic dissent. According to Sputnik, the declassified SVR documents, both the US State Department and the European External Action Service, EEAS, are increasingly worried about the declining trust among Ukrainians in their state institutions and Zelensky's administration, which they consider illegitimate. Nevertheless, Washington and Brussels prefer to maintain Zelensky's leadership due to lucrative war profiteering schemes tied to his rule. Western officials have advised Zelensky's opponents to exercise restraint for the time being, as per the Sputnik report. The SVR information also indicates that while Zelensky remains in power, the search for potential alternatives is actively ongoing. Key figures being considered include ex-President Petro Poroshenko, Kiev Mayor Vitaly Klitschko, former Ukrainian Commander-in-Chief General Valery Zaluzhny, and Ukrainian presidential aide Andriy Yermak. In a worst-case scenario, Zelensky might be made the fall guy and replaced by one of these individuals, Sputnik reported. Incidentally, Russian President Putin had also predicted earlier that Zelensky would be ousted by Western powers by the beginning of next year, attributing their collective failure from the war to him.
Written in black and white, there is a Constitutional Court decision from 2015 that directly states the president's term is 5 years, and that's it. What are we talking about? The West simply does not want to change him now. The time has not come. I've said this before, but it seems obvious to anyone. They will pin all unpopular decisions on him, including lowering the draft age, and then they will replace him. I think this will happen somewhere in the first half of next year.
In a related development reported by Sputnik, the SVR has also disclosed France's and the United States' strategic involvement in the Ukraine conflict, which includes France's preparation to deploy a contingent of 2,000 servicemen to Ukraine and the US's controversial recruitment efforts involving drug cartel members. The French Defense Ministry is reportedly concerned about the rising number of French casualties in Ukraine, as per Russian media reports. This issue was highlighted by the January 16th incident in Kharkov, where dozens of French nationals were killed after Russian forces targeted a temporary deployment point for foreign mercenaries. Despite these losses, France is preparing to send 2,000 more servicemen to the conflict zone.
Our support for Ukraine remains and will remain constant, and we will continue to mobilize to meet Ukraine's immediate needs, carrying the message of unequivocal determination to stand by the Ukrainians over the long term. In Romania, Poland, and the Baltic states, France also fully assumes its responsibilities and is doing its part in the effort and will continue to do so.
Meanwhile, Sputnik reports that the U.S. agencies, including the FBI, private military companies, PMCs, and the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, have intensified efforts to recruit imprisoned members of Mexican and Colombian drug cartels to fight for the Kiev regime. These recruits are promised full pardons in exchange for their service. The initial group, comprising several hundred individuals, is expected to be deployed to Ukraine by summer. If successful, this pilot project may expand to include recruits from other high-crime countries. Additionally, the United States is reportedly steering the investigation into the May assassination attempt on Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico towards a narrative of a lone wolf attack, devoid of foreign connections. The goal is to prevent the incident from being exposed as targeting dissenting political figures, such as Fico and Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. This report comes amidst Russian President Putin regularly questioning Zelensky's legitimacy as the Ukrainian president.